Good afternoon. Residents of Colorado Springs and El Paso County love their park system. And in this critical time, we want to keep our parks open for public use. Perhaps more now than ever, our parks, trails, and open spaces are providing our citizens a much needed benefit to sustain their physical and mental health. But we need a greater level of cooperation from our citizens if we're going to keep all our parks accessible. People who use our parks must work to maintain the social distancing that we're asking of our citizens in their other endeavors. So here's what we're asking of you. Number one, if you're sick, stay home and don't go to our parks and open spaces. Do not engage in any team sports, organized or pickup. We're seeing too many impromptu football, soccer, basketball, and volleyball games in our parks. You can't play these games and maintain social distancing. And we ask our older citizens to avoid any impromptu pickleball tournaments. Please, no picnicking by more than an immediate family. Don't let your children play in crowded playgrounds where you can't ensure safe distancing. We'll clean the equipment as often as we can, but you need to ensure your kids are washing their hands frequently. All hikers, walkers, bikers, bird watchers, sun worshipers in our parks and in our open spaces must maintain social distancing in all instances. Colorado Springs is a 200 square mile city with lots of parks. El Paso County also has several great regional parks. We don't all have to go to the Garden of the Gods Park. By all means, spread out. Try new parks. Try new trails and open spaces. We don't want to close Garden of the Gods, but we will if we need to. Folks, we're not going to engage in legal enforcement of these directives at this time, but we are going to utilize park rangers and police officers that would otherwise be assigned to schools to monitor our parks and remind people of the need for social distancing. A few reminders: our city golf courses are open, but online tee times are required. Everyone has to use their own cart, and they're being disinfected after every use. We've removed water coolers and ball washers and added inserts and holes to minimize contact areas. Pikes Peak Highway is open, but tickets must be purchased online. The Summit House is closed, but there are bathroom facilities along the highway. Of course, as we've indicated, all organized sports are postponed or canceled in the Parks and Recreation Department. And of course, the parks, the Garden of the Gods Visitor Center and all community centers are closed to the public. Ladies and gentlemen, with voluntary citizen cooperation, we can keep our parks open and use them to maintain our physical and mental health. But without your voluntary cooperation, we may need to revisit public access to some or all of our parks. So please, we need your help. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions. Karen Paulus, the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Services is here. This is a situation that she and her people are closely monitoring, and she can answer any questions that I can't answer.
You mentioned you're going to have police officers and park rangers helping at these parks. What kind of enforcement can they give? Is it tickets? What can they do?
At this point in time, we're not issuing tickets. We're simply going to ask them to remind people to engage in social distancing. If there are kids playing in basketball games and things like that, tell them that this is not an appropriate activity for social distancing. Same thing with any impromptu pickleball tournaments or anything like that going on. They'll be there to be our eyes and ears in the park, monitor what's going on, and try to suggest to people to maintain appropriate social distancing.
Mayor, how many deaths in El Paso County as of today? I know there's been some confusion.
I think there's 4 as of this morning. 3 as of this morning.
Follow-up to that, correct me if I'm wrong, but El Paso County has had the most deaths, out of any county in the state. Why haven't we shut down yet or, done a stay-at-home order like Denver put in place yesterday?
Okay, first of all, we have about half the number of positive cases. And keep in mind that El Paso County and Denver County are the same size, okay? But I think that's a great question. Let me address this issue of a shelter-in-place order that has been issued in a couple of states and in Denver, and I understand that Boulder's issuing one effective tomorrow. The essential question is, what does a shelter-in-place order accomplish over and above all the other orders that are presently existing from the governor's office? We've closed, obviously, our restaurants, except to dine. We've closed salons, we've closed gyms, closed a variety of businesses, limited groups no larger than 10. As of the weekend, the governor said any workplace can have more than half of their authorized work strength at any time. And as you know, and we're very happy with the level of compliance we have with work at home in El Paso County and Colorado Springs. So the question then becomes, what do you accomplish by a shelter-at-home order over and above the existing orders that we got? And let me just point out to you the exemptions that are in the Denver shelter-at-home order and, frankly, in California and New York shelter. Okay. All healthcare operations are exempted. All veterinary clinics, all grocery stores, markets, produce stands, food banks, all convenience stores, and any other business that sells household consumer products. Those are all exempted. All farming, livestock, fishing, food, and plant cultivation businesses are exempted. Businesses that provide food, shelter, social services, and other necessities of life, newspapers, television, radio, and other media services, you would not be impacted by a shelter-in-place order. Gas stations, auto supply, auto repair, and all related facilities. Banks, credit unions, and all financial institutions, these are exempted from shelter-in-place. All hardware stores and stores that sell hardware are exempted. Okay. Plumbers, electricians, exterminators, businesses providing mailing and shipping services, including post office boxes, all educational institutions. Now, the governor has shut down schools, a lot of voluntarily, but those that are open wouldn't be covered by a shelter-in-place order. Laundromats, dry cleaners, laundry services, obviously all the restaurant, curbside, delivery services. Businesses that supply products needed for people to work and learn from home. Businesses that supply other essential businesses with support or supplies. Businesses that ship or deliver groceries, food, goods, or services directly to residences. So any business that delivers any good, which could be virtually any business that, if they want to, can do deliveries. All construction activities are exempted from a shelter-in-place order. In Denver, all liquor stores are exempted. All recreational marijuana dispensaries are exempted from their shelter-in-place order. Airlines, taxis, all private means of transportation exempted. Home-based care for seniors, adults, or children. Professional services, legal, insurance, accounting, tax preparation services. All faith-based establishments. Now, most faith-based have voluntarily closed, but they don't have to under these shelter-in-place orders. Child care facilities. Folks, what was another one? Oh, here's a very important one for El Paso County. These shelter-in-place does not impact active duty military personnel. The state or the city cannot dictate the policy to active duty military, of which there's 40 to 45,000 in El Paso County. That has to be done by the DOD. And as you know, they've come down with essential, non-essential determinations. So the question then becomes, so if you issue a shelter in place, who's impacted over and above who's presently impacted by the governor's orders? And I do think there's a small subset, largely of small businesses. I got a call yesterday from an auto dealer that operates in the entire state of Colorado, and he says, Mr. Southers, let me tell you what the impact of a shelter-in-place order is in Denver. I can have my auto repair facility, but I can't, if somebody is having their car fixed and wanders into my shop and wants to look around and is looking for a new car, I can't sell him a new car, but he could go across the street and buy marijuana. What are we accomplishing here? I can safe distance in a car sale. So that's the question that you have to ask yourself. Is this strictly psychological? And there may be some benefit to it. So the bottom line is we're going to continue to monitor it on a day-to-day basis. I'm in constant communication with the governor. It's possible, if trends are such, the governor could issue a statewide shelter in place. If the health department comes to me and says, I think we need to do this in El Paso County, we're going to do it. But right now, I don't see a significant additional benefit to doing it.
Mayor, I'm curious about how you're getting aware of what people aren't doing at the parks. I mean, are people calling you
Yeah.
guys and notifying you, or do you have city staff kind of patrolling and looking around?
Both. I will tell you, about half the calls that the mayor's office is getting are people, if you'll excuse the word, ratting on other people. Okay, I drove by a gym and my gym got closed and I think I saw 5 people in there, that sort of thing. And we have had people call in and say, hey, I saw a bunch of guys with jerseys on playing soccer in the park. What's going on? Are we letting schools play soccer? And of course, we're not letting schools play soccer. But that's where we're hearing these stories. We had how many people we have in Garden of the Gods yesterday? Sunday.
14,000 over
Yeah.
the course of the entire day.
Yeah, we had 14,000 people in Garden of the Gods Park on Sunday. That's a lot of people. When you're trying to, now for a summer day with a lot of tourists, that's not that many people. But for, at this point in time, that's a lot of people. And that's an indication to me that some people, their kids are going stir crazy. They're saying, let's get outside. And they think Garden of the Gods, that's the big park. And I think they need to be a little more creative and think, hey, what about Ute Valley? What about Bear Creek Park? What about Fox Run Park? There's a lot of parks where you can get out and get that exercise. And let's spread out.
Are you saying most of this is happening at bigger parks like Garden of the Gods, or are you saying it's kind of spread out at all parks?
We're saying it's not spread out enough. A lot of the parks were busy yesterday when it was warm, no question about that. But I think people are not being creative enough in trying to achieve social distancing, and probably they don't all need to go to the Garden of the Gods Park.
Do you have a sense of whether or not it's because they don't know what's required, or haven't heard yet, or is it because they don't care, or they don't feel like there's a threat to them if they go out and try to enjoy
It could be a combination. I think we think, first of all, we've seen a lot of people being very respectful of social distancing in the parks, a lot of the hikers in particular. I do think there's a lot of young people in pickup basketball games and things like that see themselves as pretty impervious, and to some extent they are. They're not likely to get pretty serious symptoms. The problem is they could go home and affect grandma. And so we want them to distance themselves from other kids, and we don't want them engaging in these team sports.
You mentioned you're not at the point yet where you would close any of our parks. What would push you to that point? Is there certain parameters you're watching for?
Yeah, I think if we don't see greater cooperation, if folks don't spread out, if we continue these kinds of crowds at Garden of the Gods, we may have to close a park or something like that. I don't want to do it, but if we don't get some more cooperation, what we can also do, and I think Karen tells me we have the capacity to lock out certain areas of activity and things like that. And if we have to do that, we'll do that.
You're not at a shelter-in-place or lockdown point yet either. Are there other smaller steps that you're looking at taking for Colorado Springs outside of the statewide guidelines?
You know, as I say, I think the statewide guidelines are fairly restrictive and pretty close to what a shelter-in-place would be. And I also, I really feel like in a lot of sectors we're getting pretty good cooperation. I know, I just take the city for example. Now, about half of our employees are sworn employees. They can't shelter in place. But our other half, the vast majority, are working from home. Those of us who have to come in every day and conduct the business of the city, we're being pretty careful about social distancing. I'm noticing it in other businesses. I'm getting reports from businesses that they're being very careful. They've moved desks apart. They've, bringing smaller amounts of people in, all that sort of thing. So I really think across the board we're getting pretty good compliance. For me, from the very beginning, I've said I'm going to let health experts drive my decisions in this thing, and that's going to continue. Anything else? Okay. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate you getting on on the air. I think we're going to have another couple of nice days this week before the snow comes, and hopefully we can get people compliant in the parks.
Thank you.
You bet.